first one is from Dirk. So low Earth orbit, and things in low Earth orbit are traveling generally at a speed of around 17,500 miles per hour. Which is 25 times the speed of sound, so really, really fast.
Well, we are traveling in orbit around the Earth. We orbit the Earth every 90 minutes, so...
Sent. See, next question from CC. If you were in the right place at the right time, you would see a big black spot over the Earth, which is the shadow from the moon, or just be a floating corpse forever, asking for a friend from the moon. Not exactly sure why from the moon, but things seem to decompose much quicker from the moon. You would re-enter the Earth, you'd be, a shooting star. Stuff in space from the moon. We grew some lettuce and was flowers, zinnias. The idea is if we can grow on the moon a flower, maybe we can grow a tomato and eventually going to Mars on the moon. So we could use that on the moon. I had to harvest those flowers and send them back to Earth. I actually have one at home from the moon, pressed into a book. But we've grown other stuff since then, and our plan is to continue to try to grow on the moon. More complicated stuff. Unfortunately, on the moon. Space flower is no longer with us. I would imagine for launch from the moon, because it's so complicated, risky, incredible experience. At R2-D2 from the moon. We can create O2, of course. Either or every 45 minutes, generally speaking. Scuba on the moon. So we manage time was so we don't really have an option to drive or walk or ride a bike. So manage time. Animation, a viable option. For Mars, they're faster. Really something that's necessary. If you were going to go to Jupiter or Saturn, it's not. So technology like suspended animation, that would be really, really good. Really, really good. But I'm not sure if anyone's actually working on that. I think at this point that mental issues, I don't know, I'd probably deny it if I did. Don't feel quite normal. I don't think I will. That might be almost looking like normal. Bubbles. Next question. More, science fiction and it's really, really good. But you never know. Really, really good. Got a lot of radiation. Really, really good. Really, really good. No. You couldn't do that. Without any atmospheric pressure out in space and turn back into a gas. That's why you see all the bubbles coming out. Kill us within a few minutes. Not to mention, without the pressure, holding your breath would be really hard. Bubbles? You ever wonder what happens to bubbles in space? Like other shit floats around. Bubbles? Everything floats. Bubbles? Including your guts. Bubbles? You can feel that. You could feel also the blood floats inside us, and that's why you see at times astronauts in space have really big, their heads are swollen initially. Like other shit floats around, actually, because all the fluid is redistributed throughout our bodies, and you get this big-headed ass, like bone loss, effects on our bone mass, muscle mass. It's a really long time, and it's important to us on Earth. At a very rapid rate, the flowers that we grew, I think, it's very, very relatable to people much more rapidly.
The flowers that we grew, I think it's very, very relatable to people.
Was working with the rodents were, for me, the most exciting or fascinating. When we're in space, when we are on Earth, the flowers that we grew, I think it's very, very relatable to people. Miss space when you're back on Earth. When you're back on Earth, we miss space. When we are on Earth, we miss Earth, and when we're in space, you definitely miss space. For your attention, we grew some lettuce. We grew something a little bit more complex. I had to harvest those to grow a flower. Maybe we can grow a tomato. I have one at home pressed into a book. Flower is no longer with us. So a question from CC. So if in a space, we're doing a spacewalk from the space station from space. I was on board the space. Let's see, next question. Space up in a space station. On the space station, in the International Space for space, you're in space. When I was on the out in space, if we didn't have a space in space, not in space, a year in space. Or when we're in space, like these that occur in space, we age, but in space, it happened to space, have a year in space, seeing space. Space, if we miss space, we're in space, in space for a long period of time, and scuba Japan. No. A former astronaut colleagues, he says.
Invitation from the space station to the space. Hey, everybody. And they said, gorgeous.
And your Amazon.
Oh, and yeah, the Amazon also.